Phillip, what were the bands or artists that had the biggest impact on you, and why?
Okay, how much time do I have? Okay,
It's
my
a 2-hour
father.
show.
Okay, my upbringing was very musical. I was made to take piano lessons from day one, first grade, and that was more or less a result of my father and my mother both being musicians. But my father was a guitar player in a band during med school that was. They wrote a song that was very famous. It still is, but they sold the rights to Wilson Pickett because they were like, we're in med school. It was back, if you could think of that movie, That Thing You Do, it's a very good example of how bands toured back then. You had a hit single and you toured around playing that same song.
Yep.
And, he and his, bandmates, they were all, in med school at Columbia. They were like, nah, we'll take the money. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
But, he was very adamant about everything from, the Stones to Gilbert and Sullivan, which I know way too many lyrics to, the Mikado and HMS Pinafore. Not a bad thing. I apologize for nothing. But I would say that the first music that I was ever told was sacred would be the album Let It Bleed. And before that, we had various things like Peter, Paul, and Mary and Puff the Magic Dragon. And, every Christmas we never listened to, my father is Jewish. My mother converted to Judaism before they married because my grandmother said, you are converting. And she did.
You.
End of story. And every Christmas, we never had any Christmas music. It was not really Christmas, but
I don't think so.
Well, what we had was Luciano Pavarotti doing the entirety of the album, Oh Holy Night, 24 hours a day between Hanukkah and Christmas, because my father willed it so. And that is the greatest Ave Maria ever, as far as I'm concerned. But somewhere in there, I became aware of bands like Duran Duran, which I don't care if anyone remembers.
Yeah, I do.
Friday night video fights on MTV.
Yeah.
When the Reflex knocked Photograph by Def Leppard off the top of the chart.
Oh my God.
I was so conflicted. I didn't know what to do.
That was about as hard to swallow as Jethro Tull getting the Grammy for Best Heavy Metal Act.
See, you were
Metallica.
The metal came to me slowly but surely. Like, I loved a lot of, like, my first record, as far as I can remember, the first one I was given, I think, after, sing song, kid stuff, was, I think, Duran Duran's original Duran Duran self-entitled. It starts with Girls on Film, which is, let's say, that wasn't exactly clean. It was a great album, and it also made me aware of things like, their bass player. My God, everybody in the world thought he was like, he was the heartthrob of whatever, but he played a mean bass line. If you listen to
Duran Duran, was a heartthrob. That actually exists. Who would that be?
I think his name was Roger Taylor.
Oh, the guy from Duran Duran. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, you're right. He was.
Sweetheart, you remember.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that led to a great many loves, which include, I fell into a very, very passionate, dedicated metal must find something harder stage of my life, where it was extraordinary because to talk about, going to concerts with your parents. I saw Prince on the Purple Rain tour twice with my parents.
Wow.
One time the guitar that sprays water all over you didn't work, which was great because Prince played it off like, oh, no, I couldn't possibly. And then, of course, thank God, I saw Motley Crue with none other than Guns N' Roses opening up for them when I was in 7th grade. Friends, let me tell you something. I've never heard as much in the way of profanity, and I've never seen anything like that. They could not play. They were talking about all the drugs they had been doing. They said, this city sucks. We can't stand it. We can't do anything but drugs. And the audience booed them off the stage. It was kind of frightening on some level. And of course, I was with my best friend from elementary school, Mary Hinkle, and his mom, who was in a stall in some bathroom in the back of the auditorium. Of course, the next day, I'm the only kid who found a way to procure that album, Appetite for Destruction. But I mean, this is a long time ago. This is what, 80, 87? I guess?
87. Yeah,
Yeah,
87.
87. Tommy Lee flipping around in drums and stuff. But my God, they were just like so shockingly, they were so raw that I was like, I must know more. So I bought that album. So I was never after that. I mean, I loved Motley Crue. I loved stuff like the Fry. I enjoyed Hall & Oates. My mother was, the big sort of 80s. The Romantics. She would play that and dance. My father would be like, "Oh, hell with that," and he would find something like, he would throw on "Bitch" or "Give Me Shelter" or something like that. But I had a fairly, and I'm grateful, I had a fairly diverse. My influences were diverse, and sooner or later, I realized that this glam metal is just really getting unbearable, and that's when I discovered Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And I think that Queensryche owes Iron Maiden at least, part of whatever, they've put away on, let's just say, the album Operation Mindcrime, those dueling guitars, everything about that. They were so good. But I also think Dave Murray and Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden, Live After Death, that album, that changed everything for me. So after that, it was sort of looking for something harder, more complicated, complex, which enter the Rush stage. And that's, and bear in mind, I've been taking piano lessons this whole time. When you take years, almost a decade worth of piano lessons, you might not be able to play piano worth a damn, but you can pick up a guitar and play it pretty well.
Yeah.
To be a great pianist takes a lifetime. To play guitar well doesn't take much, comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
So in high school, in junior high school, I can remember being told, "No, you can't come to my son's house," because I'm like, why? Oh, is it the Number of the Beast shirt that I'm wearing? Eddie, with a decapitated head in his right hand. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I really just was so oblivious to. Yeah, I was never trying to throw these things in anyone's face, and it was. I knew enough about, the music and the people who were writing the music to know that it was all.
It's an act.
Yeah, it was a theater. Yeah, the most impressive kind of theater.
Yeah.
And none of them, everyone in the band, they were actually very intelligent people. And for the most part, they were musically, technically proficient.
Yeah, see, you say that. It's funny that you say that because, like, us 80s kids grew up knowing that was an act and that was kind of, just a show, Kiss, for a perfect example. I didn't picture any of those guys walking around, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, just every day with that shit on. I knew that whole, yeah.
I mean, nothing that they wrote. I mean, if you're going to blame it on the makeup, I mean, what a soft move to go and, talk about Kiss in terms of they're damning our children to hell. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's funny that now we've grown up and a majority of those parents that grew up in the 80s are those parents that are saying, "Oh my God, Marilyn Manson, this is horrible. This is disgusting. Our kids shouldn't be listening." It's just weird how we made that
nose
transition
on people now. So.
Yeah.
Well, Marilyn Manson was given sort of like this license, and I actually think Marilyn Manson deserves a lot more credit for his talent. Everything else about him, But let's just say that when you label someone, when you decide to label someone because they look a certain way or their music sounds a certain way, and you don't take a deep, a more critical take on it, and you just go ahead and say, "Oh, it's evil. It should be banned." Well, I can't really blame any of those acts for lashing out and becoming even more shock oriented. Like think of Wasp, for example, Blackie Lawless. They were truly the most maligned of the PMRC bands, I think, and probably for good reason. But as soon as they were, made Public Enemy #1, at least in California, well, hell, they were going to play harder, faster, and make up, all the time. And that's. I'm sorry, I'm not going to blame them for,
I think a lot of it, I think 80s prior to MTV changed the way bands started selling themselves. And I think getting that opportunity to be on a television screen for millions of people to watch and see, I think they figured it out. We need to put on a fucking show. It needs to be, sadly, it had to be more than just about the music. It had to be this, this video had to be everything, and if you think about it, I hate saying it, but God damn it, why can't I remember? Michael Jackson kind of set the bar pretty high when it came to fucking music videos.
My father got pissed about MTV once, and it was scary. He walked in, I guess, at that point in the video for When Doves Cry, bubble bath point, and I thought he was going to kick right through the big old console TV. And this is not hit on brand for him. This is very strange. I was really taken aback. Anyway, he just happened to have a shit day, and he was pissed that about something else entirely. But if you think about it back then, how much in the way of attention was paid to bands that were, quote, Satanistic, or they were selling, they were, and in the meantime, Heaven's Gate, how you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, how many different death cults do we have out there? I mean, evil is very infrequently, they don't really go out onto the streets and say, oh, black, we're evil. No, they're dressed up in Izods and khakis. Trust me.
Yeah,
it's just, it's a
jump
silly
into
thing.
the next topic, but it's funny you brought that up, because for my dad, it was Culture Club, Boy George. When he walked into the living room, he saw, what the fuck is that? And I've never heard my dad say that. He was just like, what the fuck is that? And just kept walking. I was like,
if it were not for my mom, my dad probably doesn't say. My mom was like, oh, I like him. He's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. My dad was like, what the hell was that? I was like,
But I have to say, REM, Kuda Gurus, Guadalcanal Diary, the Smithereens, Replacements, all very important.